Alright, so in this video we're going to talk about the subconscious mind. I'm going to be going over subconscious affirmations as well as subliminal messaging. And if you are familiar with these videos, you know I'm going to give you some research papers, I'm going to give you some books, and then I'm going to give you some Google cues that you can climb down the rabbit hole. But I'm going to try to quantify all of this information for you so you don't have to go do those things. I'm only giving you those things so we can be on the same page. Pun intended. So the very first thing I want to tell you with subliminal messaging is that, one, based on myself doing it to myself, it works, and it is scary to the point where I actually felt glued to my computer and doing work because the subliminal messaging I was giving myself was do work harder, you can do this, let's get this done now. And what you can see in this first research paper that talks about, says subliminal messaging exert long-term effects on decision making. So this stuff is very powerful, and I'm not going to give you a link to the place because I don't really condone the use of this because it works, but it's also not good. So subliminal manipulation is often considered harmless because its effects typically decay within a second. And this is where you may have learned in marketing, subliminal messaging or subliminal things happening in the background that you're not really aware of, and you're just picking up on it for a second. So far, subliminal long-term effects on behavior were only observed in studies which repeatedly presented high familiar information such as single words. So single words are the most effective version of subliminal messaging you can give yourself. So work, work, work. One word, not multiple words. These studies suggest that subliminal messaging are only slowly stored and might not be stored at all if they are provided novel, unfamiliar information. And now remember, anytime you read a research paper, you want to go to the keywords. And you want to find out if the keywords that are in the research paper is along the lines of what you're expecting to learn. So hippocampus, memory and learning center, long-term memory, hell yeah. Unconscious processing, why you doing what you're doing because, well, you're doing it. You don't know why you're doing it, but you're doing it anyways. And then decision making, of course, we can all make better decisions. Subliminal, so subliminal. And then information integration. Hell yeah, I want to integrate some information into my brain to make my life better. So I can tell you that I played these when I used them literally from the moment my computer opened to the moment my computer closed. So once again, with research, you're only going to be able to find so much out there. And then you kind of just got to make the executive decision in your own life to choose, well, do I want to try this out or do I just want to say that this is not real? And matter can't matter unless it matters to you. So maybe this matters to you. But with subconscious affirmations, those will 100% change your life if you listen to them long enough. With subliminal messaging, mixed results. Some people experience it, some people don't. Maybe some people are immune to it. I have no idea. But in experiment 1, subliminal face occupants pairs affects conscious decision about the income of the individuals almost half hours later. So what I want you to do is read this, but just understand. So in experiment 1, about a half hour went by before there was an effect. In experiment 2, so it says the vocabulary of foreign language enabled participants to later decide whether these foreign words are presented with correct or incorrect translations. So what? People are able to know shit that they didn't even remember knowing, but now they know it. So that's the stuff that should get you kind of intrigued. Whoa, what is this? How do I learn things without even learning them? I'm not even aware of learning them, but I'm learning them? Yeah. We're going to get into even more. So subliminal influence did not significantly decay if probed after 25 versus 15 minutes. So I'm talking 9 to 14 hours of this. So that's why I couldn't step away from the computer. So it says this unprecedented evidence of the longevity and impact of subliminal messages on conscious rational decision making. So that's just the first paragraph when you get into these research papers. And I'm not going to read this whole research paper to you. I just want to give you some key points on it to hopefully motivate you to read it. Link in description down below. But subliminal stimulation was further found to non-consciously shape decision making. And then this is where it starts talking about, but bias responses of free choice. Wait, what? Free choice? So you're telling me that the decisions I'm making Thus, there is ample evidence that subliminal messaging can be integrated unconsciously and can influence decisions and choice. So this is where, whether subliminally presented information is stored long-term memory and guided delayed decisions is vastly unknown. So they'll always love to tell you that it's vastly unknown whether or not this is going to work. But I'm the type of person that might have a problem and read something like this and I'm like, what happens if I do this to myself for 14 hours a day, every single day, all day long? And I'm going to tell you that it is going to influence you like crazy. But I want to warn you to not use it. So that's my advice. Do not use it, but it works. So, a great example of understanding kind of subconscious manipulation, or if something's playing and you're repeatedly hearing it, what could you think of an example of that, right? If you don't have YouTube Premium, which I don't know why you don't have YouTube Premium, by the way, like nobody wants to see those random advertisements with somebody being like, I have 17 trillion billion Ferraris, and you can have one too by learning how to click with your left finger on this mouse. So, an example of something that is getting programmed into people's brains, which is predictive programming, are the advertisements on YouTube, where most people have convinced themselves that those advertisements are scams or that the people that are recording them are dishonest. And once again, how many programs have you bought in the past 5 years? You have to ask yourself those types of questions. How many programs have you bought to know whether or not they're scams? But the brain itself, from constantly getting the same stimuli, the same experience in the same place, the same day, all day, every single day, it's building that pattern in your mind. It's creating that predictive programming in you to make you believe, oh, well, if one's a scam, they're all a scam. And if you take a moment to think about predictive programming, when you hear the word rich, what comes to your mind? Does a picture of money come to your mind? Does a jet that looks fancy? Does something clean come to your mind? Would you think of Bugattis, Ferraris, The Rock, somebody in a business suit with nice hair or maybe no hair? Whatever thought that you've been taught to think is what you're going to believe. So, the old guy with the sunglasses getting out of the nice car with the nice suit definitely seems to be up in the term rich. Then you can see, like, this goes into before we're even aware of the world around us, we're getting taught these thoughts to think. So when I type in poor people, well, there you go. Poor person begging, hands palms out. So this is where you get into learning that this seems like a poor person. And now we think, based on the way that somebody looks, who they are without even knowing who they are. Which will lead us to our very first book. If you haven't read this one, it's a super good book. You would stack this one with Living in a Place of Surrender, The Untethered Soul in Action. I think that's close to the title. They're both by Michael A. Singer. But The Untethered Soul, this is where we've been taught to think a thought, and we believe we are the thoughts that we've been taught to think. It is you believe you are who you are because you were told that's who you are. Like, I grew up in a poor household. I believed I was poor. Therefore, I only deserved being poor because that was the thought that I was taught to think. That I deserved being poor and I could not do more. So, the untethered soul is going to ask you that question. And I challenge you to go do this with other people. Say, who are you? And they'll tell you their name, they'll tell you all their basic traits about themselves, but they'll never really tell you who you are, unless you're in the presence of somebody who has done the thinking for themselves. So, first takeaway point from this video with the subconscious and subliminal messaging is, who are you? And then think to yourself, you can live a pretty good life off the thoughts of others, but in order to live a great life, you must find your own. And how do you know which thoughts are yours and which thoughts are somebody else's if you haven't started to look into the thoughts you were taught to think? So now this next research paper is going to be a little bit of a spin-off where people with executive functioning problems, ADHD among other things, that you got to just look into the meditation video for the ADHD, the ADD type stuff, like All of the issues that are presented there, weirdly enough, are connected to meditation. But reinstating the resourceful self. When and how self-affirmations improve executive performance of the powerless. And I'd like to tell you a little bit of a personal story about self-love affirmations. I can't tell you how much I hated myself. Like, every single thing in my life was just the bottom of the barrel suffrage. My health, depressed, anxiety, ADD, ADHD, ODD. I made $420 a week. I would choose drugs over paying bills. I did not love myself at all. I literally lived in a fucking basement. So I would also only get out of bed on the weekends because I would just sleep my weekends away. And the only reason I'd get out of bed is to pee, because if I peed my bed, I couldn't sleep in my bed. So that was kind of like the only thing that I would go do. Like, I'm talking broken to the point of only getting out of bed to not pee your own bed. That's where I was at one point in my life. Self-love affirmations. If you have not heard of the homeostatic line watching this video, check out the homeostatic line. It's 183 pages of information. It's going to give you a very clear, concise, step-by-step guide on how to start to transform the thoughts you were taught to think. Because the wrong words, based on personal experience, take you to the wrong place. And you don't know that's the wrong place because it's all you know and you have no conflicting information. There's nothing to perceive otherwise. So you just do the best you can. The right words take you to the right place. So I can tell you, when you add in the meditations, you add in self-love affirmations, don't do the subliminal messaging. No, I'm just kidding, don't do it. Totally don't do it. But when you add these all together, you start to recognize change. And this is where, if you're following the whole process, like, you have to follow the process for this to work, because the timer on your phone during the day is going to allow you to catch that moment. You're gonna grab that moment. Because, like, if you've already watched the Dopamine, Time, and Human Impulsivity, where we talked about that research paper, where time flies when you're having fun because dopamine removes that subjective experience of time. So the timer is your conscious override. It's the snap, wake up. Am I doing the things I need to do to get to where I want to be? If yes, then awesome. If no, then oh crap, what do I do now? So the self-love affirmations, I remember responding to somebody in a way that I would never, ever, ever respond to somebody. I was relatively intelligent. I knew that I was. So I would be kind of like a little bit of a douche to people, in a sense, where I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I would just, go into who I was as a person back then. The self-love affirmations, where somebody blamed me for something, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw where the key was, and they're like, oh, he probably lost it. Because I was a person that misplaced things all the time. It was just a problem that I had, misplacing things. And then you look at ADHD and you're like, oh, that's normal, misplacing stuff, forgetting things. I always misplace things. It was my fault normally. That person blamed me, and I saw the keys. And normally I would have said something mean to them, been like, yeah, swear, and once you look over there, swear word. That was me at one point in time. Self-love affirmations, it's so crazy to come from somebody who used to be so angry and hateful to being like, you come from a place of love towards everything. And you don't feel those anger spurts anymore. That's the meditation shrinking the amygdala part. And then the subconscious affirmations when you sleep, which is we're going to go over here. This is where you start to, you just have these moments and you're like, whoa, that's not me. It is me. I just didn't know it. Because the subconscious affirmations were changing the way that I was interacting with reality. It's insane. You can read, that'll be the next book we'll talk about here in a second. But you can learn from 1 through 7, you're in the programming phase. You're just absorbing information. Me, I had to be in fight or flight mode my entire life. Everything was done out of survival, period. It was kill or be killed for me. It was just danger, feral cat right here. Then you start listening to them. And I started interacting with people in just ways. I was like, look, I apologize that I'm always the person that misplaces things, but if you would have looked over there, you would have saw the keys. And then I turned to the person and I said, dude, they're working. And he had no idea what I was talking about, but you kind of want to share one of those epiphany moments with somebody when you feel them. You're like, oh my gosh, It was working. He had no idea what I was talking about. But I knew it was working. And that's why we give you those timers. It's going to override. It's going to let you find that moment in your day where you start to react to your surroundings differently. Like Einstein's observer effect. I don't want to dive too far into that. There's stuff coming out in a book. But that's where it's not what you see, it's what you know about what you see, because that's how you feel. And it's not what you hear, it's what you've heard, because that's what you're hearing. Like you have filters, like an energetic field around you. And based on what you've learned, your own innate energy is perceiving all of the incoming vibrations here and all of the incoming vibrations here. And I'm a living example of somebody who was literally the most angry human being on the planet. Sitting in a stoplight. Oh, if you took an extra 5 seconds, I was laying on the horn, screaming out the window, swearing at you, giving you the finger. And then, fast forward, after you do a lot of work on yourself, it's actually kind of fun to sit there and you're curious. You're like, I wonder if this person's going to sit through the whole green light. And people actually have. And I was like, then I just give them a little honk and you just let them go. So you start reacting to the world out of a place of love instead of a place of like survival and fear and anger. I'm a living example of that. So we're going to talk about this research paper next. So remember, when you're looking at research papers, always go to keywords. You do not need to be a PhD neuroscientist, neurochemistry, cardiology, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to be any of that. You just need to understand what the words mean and educate yourself on them. Social power. What do you believe social power is? If you don't know what social power is, please just right click, open it up. Because when I heard of neurogenesis, I said, what? Birth the new brain cells in the memory and learning center. What the heck's a what? Hip hop anonymous? Hip hop anonymous? You give him all the easy ones? No, hippocampus, your memory and learning center. Social power is defined as the capability to assert control by creating desirable, legitimate values without involving unconventional means. So think about creating legitimate states of self-love in yourself without unconventional means. All you're doing is listening to something when you sleep at night, and it reprograms your life. It's insane. So self-affirmation, that's what we want, but I'm going to show you on this Word doc really quickly, this self-affirmation part right here. You'll read in this book, which I'm going to give you first, because I got to connect all the dots here. Would you look at that? The Belief of Biology, Unleashing Power of Consciousness, Matter, and Miracles. So Bruce Lipton, obviously this is a plug for, Bruce Lipton over here. If you haven't heard of him, maybe give him a Google, learn some stuff, go through all of his books, go through some of his courses, have fun. And I don't care if you buy my course, I just care that your life gets better so somebody else's life can get better because your life got better. It's kind of how it works. Like, happy people make other people happy. Angry people usually kind of just like you want to avoid them. You're just going to be like, that's great, but not today. So you're going to learn in this one, it's talking about the programming phases that people go through. You're going to see this mentioned in many other books as well. So this is a very common term. Age 1 through 7, you're in your programming phase. So I just wanted to leave this book here so you have a good understanding of this. So it's like through simple language, humor, real life examples, you'll discover how epigenetics is revolutionizing. And that's talking about DNA influencing. That's going to be more of the telomere effect book, where you can learn about thoughts influencing stress, shortening your telomeres. So this is just a must read for anybody that wants to understand the subconscious, like the thoughts you're thinking and how they manifest your reality. But the word manifest doesn't mean that something's magically going to happen. It is not magic. Manifesting is not magic. You still have to put in the work. All right, so you should remember this line by now. Remember the homeostatic line. Okay, so you have 5%. It ranges across the internet between like 5%, 3%, 6%. So less than 10%. We'll just take it to an astronomically probably higher number than what you're going to find in research. But we'll say that 10% of your thoughts are actually conscious behaviors, and 95% of your thoughts are subconscious behaviors. So you remember that iceberg? If you've never seen the picture of the iceberg, it's this big, giant iceberg in the water, and just this little bitty piece pops out right here. So everything that you think, you know, you experience, the thoughts that are going on inside of other people's minds, all you get a chance to perceive is that little tiny bit of reality right here, which goes back to the, oh, that person's dressing nice, they must be something. Oh, that person dresses like a bum, they must be something. Oh, an advertisement on the internet, having seen advertisements on the internet for the past 10 years, it must mean something. So the meaning that we think is real is just like 10% of the possible meaning. So Freud's iceberg theory, right here, thoughts and perceptions. Okay, that's our conscious mind. If I say giraffe, and then I say giraffe again, and then I'm saying like giraffe, long neck. What has a long neck? A. You know what word comes next? Programming. Consciously, aware, thinking, experiencing, breathing. We're right here watching this. But if I ask you, how many breaths have you taken in the past 5 minutes? Were you even breathing while watching this video? Were you consciously reminding yourself to, or was it just happening? So there is something that your subconscious controls that you can, you're not consciously breathing, you're unconsciously breathing. It's just happening. But thank the Lord that that happens, because I feel like some people, old me would have totally forgot to breathe and have died years ago. New me, yeah, every once in a while I like to breathe consciously. So thoughts and perception exist on the conscious mind, right? Memory, stored knowledge. What is an animal that has a long neck? What is an animal that has a horn that runs really fast? Well, is big. I don't know how fast they run because I don't know enough about rhinos. What is an animal that has 4 legs, has some spots, and it's technically the fastest land animal? Has a big long tail, hunts for gazelles. So previous stored information you can recall. So that would be like thinking fast and slow, or the power of, or blink, the power of thinking without thinking. And then unconscious, instincts, fears, selfish motives. What are people scared of? People that have trauma, that their brain was programmed to not think they were good enough. AKA, another example from my life. I grew up in a poor household. Everybody in my family was poor. Literally, everybody was poor. Nobody taught me to read books. I was literally mentally, physically, and emotionally abused my whole life. And what did that do for me as an adult when I was put out into the real world? I was scared of everything. I had no idea that I could do anything that I'm doing today. And if you asked me 10 years ago that I'd be doing this, wasn't even a thought. Had no idea it existed. Literally, zero idea that this part of the world was even a part of the world. Self-improvement? What do you mean? Self-loathing? Oh yeah, I've heard of that one before. Creating my problems? Yeah. Solving my problems? Nope, never heard of those before. Creating your problems became a norm for me. Out of fears. My instincts were to be afraid of doing better for myself. And this sounds crazy. I convinced myself at one point in my life to such a place of suffering that when I was offered a job that I was totally qualified for, that would pay me $20,000 more than the job that I was currently working at, I created excuses to not take that job when I was offered the job. I started convincing myself, I'm like, oh, well, that's a really far drive. What if my car like breaks down and then I can't get to work? I can bike to this job. I'm sitting here having a freaking conversation about how I can keep myself in the same place. So trust me, or don't trust me. Your instincts, if they're rooted in fear and suffering, you will go find suffering no matter how much you consciously think that you want to improve. You can't, you won't, it's not possible, doesn't work like that. So back to baseline. We look at the homeostatic line. We have 2 possible options, 3 possible options. 1, we can continue existing in the same level of existence that we've always experienced. That may be subject to making your life better or making your life worse. I don't know the thoughts that you've been taught to think. I know the thoughts that I was taught to think. Option number 2, you can start to reassociate with reality. The subconscious affirmations when you sleep at night. Over the next couple months, weeks, years, the quality of your life could substantially improve, creating a better version of reality. The other ladder could be to, once again, you have a lot of negative thoughts in your brain. You could continue to just self-destruct and go in the opposite direction. Wrong words taken to the wrong place, or right words taken you to the right place, or not learning anything new, continuing to do what I do. Positives, negatives, or neutrals. And you're the one who has to wake up tomorrow with the thoughts that you think. Not me, not anybody else. So I'm gonna be super honest. Yeah, we're like 25 minutes into this video, so I think it's okay if I say this. I definitely got sidetracked. Ran into a random person on TikTok Live. They were from Jamaica, and now I'm gonna hopefully sell my program in Jamaica. So I'm gonna make those contacts happen. It was a fun conversation, to be honest. So back to the, you can improve life, you can decrease the quality of your life, or you can stay the same. That is very true. So, yes, wardrobe change. Finalizing things with subliminal messaging and subconscious affirmations when you sleep at night. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a link down below for the subconscious affirmation video that I listen to. 45 days. Okay, read the book called Habits of a Happy Brain if you need to understand how long it's going to take for your brain to reprogram itself. If you're not following the homeostatic line behind optimizing your diet, optimizing exercise, raising brain-derived neurotrophin factor, if you're not meditating for neuronal plasticity, if you are not optimizing your body for your brain health, this process will take a lot longer. So, subconscious affirmations when you sleep at night. 45 days based on the book called Habits of a Happy Brain, 63 days based on the book called The One Thing. The Bruce Lipton, The Belief of Biology, is going to educate you more about how the subconscious mind works. You can read all of Bruce Lipton's books, you can read all of Joe Dispenza's books, but at the end of the day, it's always going to push you back towards being able to rewrite the subconscious mind. Your innate belief system has been built for you with thoughts that you've been taught to think. We already know this now. So big takeaways from this is you've been taught to think a thought, and you can live a good life off the thoughts of others, but in order to live a great life, you must in fact find your own. And a good way to find your own thoughts, subconscious affirmations, the self-love affirmations, I started recognizing that the thoughts that I was thinking that didn't work for me. And I would have never been able to recognize that had I not learned to love myself and realize I knew all the wrong words, so I was definitely going to the wrong place. And if you are not in the right place, you might not know the right words. So, subconscious affirmations when you sleep at night, they're going to help reprogram the brain. You're taking 95% success rate and you're trying to fight against a 5% success rate if you're trying to do this stuff while you're awake. Which mantras during the day, guided meditations, cool. However, for like real change, you listen to them when you sleep at night. 1 through 7 is the programming phase. After that programming phase, you are just going around the world using the thoughts that you've been taught to think. So just think you're generating a frequency from your family, and now you're growing up and you're interacting with others based off of the thoughts that you were given. So listen to the self-love affirmations when you sleep at night. It's going to take a while for them to work. There should be a document link somewhere. It's also in the homeostatic line, a direct link to it, more education and information. When it comes to the subliminal messaging, be very careful. It works. It's extremely powerful to the point where I couldn't even get away from my computer because it work, just banging in front of your face all day. So it was very hard for me to get away from my computer. I felt like something was wrong when I wasn't working. So do the subconscious subliminal affirmations at your own risk. Talk to your doctor, talk to your PCP, talk to somebody smarter than me. Do the subconscious affirmations at your own risk. Talk to your doctor, talk to your PCP, talk to somebody smarter than me. However, those are two things that I've used that have definitely impacted my life. And the subconscious affirmations changed everything about my life. And if you're wondering how to get access to the homeostatic line, it is on the Homeostasis Diet website. It is the video right here. Step number 1, download the homeostatic line. 183 pages of information, give or take a few. We're going to, revamp it. But it's got a bunch of life-changing information. You got your 24-page paper of healthy foods written by the gut restoration dietitian, a 62-page 30-day vegan detox meal plan, a 38-page PDF that goes over the homeostatic line, a 20-page PDF that would give you an outline if you were to start implementing all of these books and research into your life, what would your day look like? And then there's like another 7-page PDF, and then one more that I totally forget because it's been a while since I've looked at it. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will now see you in the next one. See ya.